This is Pastor Brian Wolfmueller with your introduction to Genesis chapter 6, your Old Testament chapter today, which is the Flood, Act 1. The Genesis 6 is 22 verses. It'll take you 2 minutes and 45 seconds to read out loud. And what you're going to see in this text is God's love and His wrath all mingled together. Because the flood is promised, that's wrath. But the ark is provided, and that's grace, and a grace that sees to it that Jesus is born. In fact, when the Bible wants to give a picture of wrath and grace, it'll use the flood. In fact, we have it in baptism. The acts of the flood are really like this. We have chapter 6, the preparation for the flood. Chapter 7 is the flood itself. Chapter 8 is the aftermath of the flood. Notice that in chapter 6, verses 14 to 21, that God is in giving Noah direct instructions. This means Noah was a prophet of God. And he stood in the counsel of God, and he's hearing the very voice of God. Now, what can we learn in this text? Pay close attention to a couple verses. In verse 5, the wickedness of man is described, and it's profound. In verse 9, the righteousness of Noah is given to us, but it's to be understood in the context of verse 8, the grace of God. So that Noah is righteous not by what he's doing, but he's righteous by faith. Noah is righteous by forgiveness. Noah is righteous because he believed the promise that God spoke to Adam and Eve as they were being expelled from the garden in 3:15. Now, what do we digest? The time before the flood, which is described in chapter 6, verses 5 to 7, and also chapter 6, verses 11 to 13, is often in the Scriptures compared to the time before the second coming of our Lord Jesus. For example, Matthew 25, verses 37 and following, and 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 1 to 6. And so it's something to think about that the Lord will use this description of the time before the flood, so pay attention to those words there, as also a description of the time of the destruction of God's order before the second coming. Now, what's the comfort? I'd like you to consider 1 Peter 3, verses 18 to 22, and to see that the ark is for us a picture of our baptism, our salvation through water, and that just as God saved Noah and his family, 8 souls in all, so He has saved us by the washing of holy baptism. That's the notes. Post up your comments, and again, let us know how these videos are treating you, and we'll see you soon. God's peace be with you.